Hello, I'm Al Koritz. I'm the Applications and Service Manager here at EMS, and today we're going to demonstrate the proper procedure for lubricating the shutter on a Q300TD, a dual head sputtering tool. The machine is sort of taken apart much further than necessary for this procedure, so we'll just stick with the pertinent points. The first thing you want to do is raise the lid so you can have access to the shutter mechanism. Remove the knurled knob and gently remove the shutter, noting the orientation of the shutter. The next step is to lower the lid and to remove. There's a shoulder bolt under the cover here. I believe a number 3 Allen head till it falls out and becomes loose. Then you can lift the cover mechanism up, and because I've had this apart a couple of times and it's not properly screwed together, it's being a bit difficult. So for now we'll set the shoulder screw aside, and I will take the cover off. I've just put 2 screws back in it just for this demonstration purposes. There's 6 screws normally that hold the cover in position. For whatever reason, since this is sort of a donor unit where I steal parts periodically, this was my original application lab system. It's a 2011 build, so it doesn't have a latching mechanism for the lid. So right now the easiest thing to do would be just to remove this cover and get it out of the way. Something to take note of is the upper arm can now be raised and moved out of the way, revealing the shutter flag, or what I call the shutter flag. Again, here's the shutter flag. You can see that there's 2 set screws. Those set screws need to be loosened. And notice there's a flat on the side of the shaft, and there's a washer, so we need not move that. This is symmetrical, however you do want the set screws on the side of the shaft with the flat. Also on top here there are 2 grooves. This shaft goes in the rear groove. There is no shaft in the front groove. We'll just set the flag aside. We'll raise the lid all the way. On newer systems there'll be a latch here which will lock the lid in the up position, because right now it would just slam down on top of the unit. The latch would normally be located here, so some care must be taken to ensure that you don't inadvertently tip the lid down. Now, if you were going to do a complete maintenance of this, you would remove these 4 hex screws here and pull this apart. But for just shutter lubrication and really nothing more, all we have to do is really lift the lid and gently just pull the shaft out. Comes straight out. As you can see, there's 2 O-rings that do the sealing, and what we want to do is clean this off with either 95 or 100% ethanol or IPA. Do not use acetone on these O-ring greases, on these O-rings. If there's a leak, these need to be replaced, and this is actually quite a tricky feat because you would have to stretch the O-ring. First of all, you'd have to remove the internal O-ring, and these 2 O-rings are not easy to remove. You would need to remove it without scratching any of the sealing surfaces. This is why this particular type of maintenance on your shutter really should be done here at EMS by myself, since I'm experienced. What you would do is you would slide the O-ring down and seat this one first after cleaning the groove, and that way when you slide the second one down, it's not going to fall in this one, and you'll be able to pass it over and get it into this distal hole and then get it back into the system. So I'm going to pause briefly now to clean this shaft with some IPA, and then I'll show you how to reinsert it. Alright, so I have some IPA or some ethanol on the shaft. I clean it up. Doesn't look to be in bad shape. I'll just set this aside. The next step I would do is I lower the lid, and using a cotton swab with some alcohol, I just run it up and down the board to clean the old grease out. Might have to use a couple of Q-tips until it comes out somewhat clean. Okay, that's reasonably clean. I'll lift the lid up again. The grease of choice is a Pizion or Pizon M. You can order it in our catalog. And what I'll do is I'll put a small amount on my fingertip and I'll lubricate the shaft. Wipe the excess off my fingers and then just simply insert that and give it a little bit of rotation. Now you would orientate the flat on the lid. So it's facing to the right as you face the machine. Put the washer on. Reinstall the flag. Give it a good tightening. This will get jarred a little bit and we don't want it to come free. Next, I will reinstall the shutter. Lower the lid. And now put the cover back into place. And this mechanism is what actuates the shutter, and it has a slot in it. And you need to get that slot aligned with the pin. I will remove the camera from the tripod and show you. So this shutter mechanism needs to engage. This is what moves the shutter back and forth. I leave it at the 12 o'clock position. This allows for easy alignment. It's a little bit more difficult with the cover on because you have to sort of look up and make sure that that slot is centered. And this way, when you lower the lid and cover assembly, they engage. You might have to play with it a little bit. Remember that this cover will be in place, so it makes it very difficult to get this shoulder screw on the end of a Allen key and get it in there. So what I usually do is I remove one screw from the front handle, which facilitates raising and lowering the lid, and I loosen the second one, but don't remove it, and I just move it 90 degrees, and this facilitates the reinstallation of the shoulder screw, which holds the shutter mechanism and the lid together. And then once it's back into place, you can reinstall the other handle screw, and now, like I said, this is not properly installed. So now when you lift the lid, the shutter mechanism and everything is completely one unit with the lid, and your shutter mechanism should slide quite smoothly. And then you're back in operation. So that concludes this tutorial on lubrication of the shaft actuator for the shutter for a Q300TD. Thank you very much for your attention.